Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host, Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Corinna Bellizzi. Corinna is the host of Care More, Be Better podcast. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Corinna Bellizzi. Corinna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mohammed.
Thank you. Corinna, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to start your podcast, Care More, Be Better?
Well, I have been in the natural products industry for the last 20 years as a sales and marketing leader. And I've always woven in some element of social good and sustainability into my work through cause marketing campaigns and things along those lines. I've even helped to fund the build of parks in inner cities where children need more access to outdoor spaces. And ultimately, I just felt like I wanted to bring forward more of that social good into my daily life. I wanted to tell the stories of inspired individuals who are working to be the change and give them more airtime. It's enabled me to have some really interesting conversations and showcase some really important projects that I think more people need to know about.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this, building the parks in inner city. That's a big, because we all need to work together to make something happen. So, Karina, because you have done so many episodes already, is there any story you want to share which really kind of impacted? See, I'm glad I did the podcast. That's why I got to know the story.
Yeah, well, one I'm particularly passionate about is Love Without Borders for Refugees in Need. This is a not-for-profit that was started by a friend of mine who basically saw that people living in Greece in refugee camps didn't have the resources they needed to really successfully re-enter society. And there are people coming from 10 to 11 different countries landing in those camps. So she ultimately started to work to support them by bringing them art supplies, and they would create beautiful art pieces that she then sells at different shows, as well as through their Etsy shop. And 100% of the profits from those go to the people that created them. So ultimately, they're able to get some money that they need to re-enter society, and their stories get to be told, which is, I think, the more important part in a way.
Yeah.
Each art piece actually ships with what they're comfortable sharing, a little bit of the history of the artist and, their situation presently.
No, that's good. And that's also creating a mindset of entrepreneur. Hey, I need to kind of work for myself, because they all have something to share to the world, even though we all think they lost everything, we still have something.
Right. Well, they're displaced with their families and doing their best to bring their skills forward. Many of them had translatable skills, but didn't necessarily speak the language of the country they'd landed in. Yeah. So you can imagine that entry takes time.
Yeah, definitely. It takes time. I know I can relate to myself. I landed this country 25 years ago. So I know when you land, even though I came at it like a legally immigrant, I was still, there's so much new culture, new place altogether, how to navigate. It was a lot of, we take things granted. However, it's not easy. Ask that person who doesn't know that part, So.
Yeah. So that was actually my first episode. I got to interview her for that. And I just felt like it was the perfect tone setting topic because it touches on so many of the challenges that we face today. I really feel like people need to think about helping those in their community. And if these particular individuals didn't get the support that they needed, they were essentially going to end up living on the streets. Yeah. And sometimes that's the entire family.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for the good work. So, Corinna, based on your initial success on this podcast and also be a change, said what are the top 3 missteps to avoid when you're launching something like a Care More, Be Better podcast?
Well, I've worked to launch several brands over the years and built multinational companies that have, revenues of more than 100 million a year in revenue. I think the biggest thing to really get started is just that. You have to think about, okay, I just need to get started. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect on day one, right? I might have stumbled on that first interview a bit. I mean, I can hear it possibly more than those that are listening because I'm my own worst critic. Yeah. I think as many of us are.
Yeah.
So you need to be a little forgiving of those early mistakes or stumbles, get back up and get right back to it. And I think that that applies to the build of almost any brand. You know, you learn by doing and you keep going.
We learn by doing and keep going. That's a good message, Karina. So, two more missteps to avoid. That was just one.
You know, one I've often seen, I work in sales and marketing in the natural channel. I've been at the C level for some time, and I've seen executives come into a company without taking the time to really understand the culture and dynamics of the organization and the present situation of the company before they try to make sweeping changes. And almost every time I've seen that happen, the sweeping changes may not have been necessary, create more harm than good, and ultimately, dampen the success that that person might have seen if they'd just taken a second to breathe, pause, understand, and then act. So I think that's really important. It's something I've seen time and again working in business. And a third thing, really is just something I alluded to a little bit earlier. Being a perfectionist is not in your best interest. So the reason I say that is because that book you wrote, New Success Secrets, you could have spent a decade in revisions. The reality of writing is like that. It could appear that it's never done. A painting could appear that it's never done. But you have to know when to stop. Like when you get to that point of diminishing returns, you could spend 10 hours more, but you're not going to get really much more of an effect from that. So learn to be able to accept something that is really good enough and is possibly even great.
Yeah, possibly even great. And also keep in mind, version one is better than version none. So until somebody sees it. Yeah.
I think it's a common thing, especially when you're meeting successful people who are very driven.
Yeah.
They want it to be a little better, a little better, a little better. A joke that I've seen among marketers is like most of us on the marketing side, we may be really good at creating for other people, but then you look at our own website and it leaves something to be desired. I've worked for that not to be the case with caremorebebetter.com. I've put more time into it than I'd care to admit. And yet it's still not perfect.
Yeah. Okay, good. So thank you. No, it's a great looking website. I checked it before we went live. So Karina, even you have worked for like $100 million companies and at a C level, and I'm sure you have seen so many successes and failures. I want you to share your most professional failure story. What did you learn from it, and how did you recover from that?
When I was at Nordic Naturals, we had this idea that we wanted to be able to release a product that would go into the spa market. It would essentially be the same supplements that we already created, but we would dial it up in the way the packaging looked. We would put it in a nice, beautiful glass frosted bottle, and we would essentially put it into a marketplace that could command a higher price point.
Yeah.
But guess what? We didn't do quite enough, I would say, research on what the spa market would demand. So we didn't essentially build the product to what they would need. And they would have been probably just as happy to accept our existing product and our existing packaging to sell in their stores. So it was an expensive mistake. It took us time to figure out. I mean, granted, part of the reason that that particular product line may have failed was also that it happened right around 2008, 2009, when we entered quite a recession.
Yeah.
So timing can be everything. Maybe it would have succeeded another time, but as I spent time selling to that marketplace, I learned that though the product packaging was, beautiful, they probably would have been just fine taking our standard line.
No, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing it publicly, so we all can learn from each other. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah, so
you.
that line doesn't exist anymore, so you can't find it anyway.
Understood. And its purpose is not to name that what that is. It's just like a learn the lesson, like a timing and plus don't come up with all here's how the package should look like. study the
I mean,
market.
consumer research, customer research is so important. Poll as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Connect with as many of your target customers as possible as you're building something so that
Mm.
you are coming at it with a frame of context. That was actually the thing I wrote down before I started
Mm.
this interview with you. Like be sure that you actually check your gut with research.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you, Karina. Let's switch the side. Let's just get on your success side. Enough about failures. So, what are your top three success secrets? Promise me you are going to give us your best one. Okay.
Well, I think it's really important, like I shared a little bit earlier, to get started. I have this quote that it's not grammatically correct, really, but I've always just said, just go and you make it. You have to, in a way, manifest what the future is going to be and try to predict as much as possible. But you also have to just get to work. And I think that sometimes we spend a little too much time in theory, or you can even spend too much time in research. You have to actually down to the business of the business and get to know a marketplace as well as possible and put one foot in front of the other. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Okay, that's one. Two more success secrets.
Two more. See, you just keep it going.
Yeah.
I will say that I've really found that collaborative leadership is the thing that helps to position one for success. So you identify the key stakeholders that you're going to be collaborating with to go ahead and build any company. I have often worked laterally across functional teams in order to build the best possible future for an organization. And ultimately, that means from a sales leader's perspective, really understanding the operations of a business in order to build mindful plans that take into account what can actually be done, right? Not just a pie in the sky.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. No, Karina, thank you. I appreciate very much sharing your wisdom today. So, how growth hacking secrets community people are watching this now can support you?
Well, I would just like to invite people to listen to the podcast, Care More, Be Better. It's available on every podcasting platform. I also have videos on YouTube, but I don't think they're quite as polished and beautiful as yours. What I will say is that this is not something that is backed by any company. I'm really just doing it as my way to give back. It's a way I can use a platform to build on the success of other people that are working to create social change. I also consult for companies and helping them build corporate social responsibility programs. I think that's really important. So if that's something that you are involved in, or perhaps something you haven't done yet, I'm happy to consult for any companies that are interested in really doubling down and building a plan that puts people and planet online with profits. You can have that triple bottom line and still make a successful company. I think that's also very important to think about in this post-COVID world that we should all seek to create.
Yeah, we all seek to create. Thank you. By the way, are you using Clubhouse? Because your potential partners should be there. So many on
I'm
Clubhouse.
sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Clubhouse? Are you on app Clubhouse?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Oh, okay, that's good. So go on a Clubhouse. It's an audio app. All the big influencers, almost everybody, over 1 million of them are there. They could be a great partner for you for impact and change.
Wow. No, I love that. I will absolutely look into that. I
So
know that
once you go
it's
and register it, so this is my ID. Let's connect over there.
great. Clubhouse. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
See, so we can learn from each other. Somebody shared with me not too long ago. It's very new. So great. Thank you so much. So you're watching this now or in future, it does not matter when you're watching. I want you to owe it to yourself. caremorebebetter.com. Okay.
Thank you.
Visit
I'd
this
love to see
link
you there.
and be a part of the change you want to see it yourself. So let's co-create ourselves together because this is for all of us and no one is going to do it for you.
That's right. Beautifully said.
Yeah, wonderful. Karina, as we are about to wrap up, I like to ask this question to almost every guest as a kind of testimonial review for your guest experience today on the show. So, what would you say about your today's guest experience on the growth hacking secrets?
I would just say that it's lovely to continue the conversation about what really matters to businesses to help them be successful and to help people be successful. So I'm thrilled to have been interviewed on this show. I thank you so much for all of the good work that you're doing to help get people's messages out there. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate it. What would you say as a final word?
My final word to people is hey, sometimes the hardest things are the rightest. Get out there and do good.
Get out there and do good. My last word is visit caremorebebetter.com. Thank you so much, uh, Corinna Bellizzi, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.